The notification pinged at 11:47 p.m., just as I was settling into my bourbon and debugging code that actually mattered. Off to the spa retreat, babe. No signal for 3 days. Total digital detox. Love you. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stared at Olivia's text, the blue light from my phone casting shadows across our smart home's pristine living room. My wife's message was accompanied by a selfie, her perfectly contoured face glowing against what looked like a luxury car interior. But something felt off. The background didn't match the spa she'd mentioned earlier. Digital detox, my ass, I muttered, taking another sip of Maker's Mark. I'm Ryan Mitchell, 34 years old, cybersecurity analyst for a mid-sized tech firm here in our unnamed Maine town. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone's business, except when they don't want to. Where old money lives on the lake and new money pretends it belongs there. Where my wife Olivia has built her entire identity as a lifestyle influencer, selling the dream of our perfect marriage to 60,000 followers who eat up every staged photo and carefully crafted caption. The irony wasn't lost on me that I spent my days protecting other people's digital secrets, while my own wife was clearly hiding something in plain sight. I opened Instagram, scrolling through Olivia's recent posts. The pattern had been building for months, vague captions about finding herself, photos that looked increasingly professional but somehow less authentic, and this new obsession with being unreachable during her frequent trips. 3 weeks ago. Sometimes you need to disconnect to reconnect with your true self. Posted from what she claimed was a meditation retreat in Vermont. 2 weeks ago. The mountains are calling and I must go, off the grid for a few days. The geotag said New Hampshire, but the photo's metadata told a different story. Last week, girls trip to recharge our souls, no boys allowed. Maya, her influencer best friend, had posted the same caption. How original. I set down my glass and walked to my home office, the basement room Olivia called my bat cave, with that condescending laugh that used to be endearing. Now it just sounded fake, like everything else about our life together. My setup was modest, but effective. 3 monitors, enough processing power to crack most consumer-grade security, and the kind of network access that came with my job. I'd never used it for personal reasons before tonight. But something about that text, that photo, that perfectly curated lie, made my fingers itch for the keyboard. Let's see where you really are, Liv. Her cloud backup was pathetically easy to access. She used the same password for everything. Influencer Life 2023, with the exclamation point, because she thought it made her quirky. I'd set up most of her accounts myself, back when I still believed in us. The photos loaded slowly, thumbnails filling my screen like pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. But there it was, clear as day, GPS coordinates that placed her at Jake Morrison's lake cabin. Not a spa, not Vermont, not anywhere she was supposed to be. Jake, her ex-boyfriend from college, the outdoorsy, authentic guy who owned a rustic cabin on the North Shore and made a living as a wilderness guide. The guy she'd told me was just a friend when he'd started liking her photos again 6 months ago. I clicked through the hidden album I'd never seen before. Private memories. My stomach dropped with each swipe. Olivia and Jake hiking. Olivia and Jake by a campfire. Olivia and Jake in bed, her engagement ring clearly visible on the nightstand. The timestamps went back 3 months. My hands were shaking as I opened her message history. The conversation thread with Jake was a masterclass in deception. Ryan's working late again. He won't even notice I'm gone. Can't wait to be somewhere real with someone who gets me. Maya's gonna cover for me on social. She's posting old content while I'm with you. I feel more myself at the cabin than I ever do at home. I sat back in my chair, the blue glow of the monitors making everything feel surreal. 10 years together, 3 years married, And this is what it had come to. My wife living a double life while monetizing our fake happiness for strangers on the internet. My phone buzzed. Another text from Olivia. Missing you already. The spa has amazing energy. I can feel myself healing. I looked at the timestamp on her last message to Jake, 11 minutes ago. Can't wait to wake up next to you tomorrow. Something cold and calculating settled in my chest. I'd spent my entire career thinking 3 steps ahead of hackers, anticipating their moves, protecting against their schemes. Now it was time to use those skills for something personal. I opened a new browser window and started typing. If Olivia wanted to play games with technology, she'd picked the wrong opponent. I knew every app she used, every platform she posted on, every digital footprint she left behind. And I knew something she didn't. Her perfect life was about to become very, very public. But first, I wanted to see the look on her face when she realized her no-signal excuse was about to fall apart. I typed back, "Hope you're enjoying Jake's cabin. Tell him I said the Wi-Fi password Wilderness Guide 2020 was easy to guess. Also, his security cameras have been very entertaining tonight." I hit send and waited. The response came faster than her supposed no signal should have allowed. "What the hell are you talking about?" Then another, "Ryan, answer me." And another, "This isn't funny." I smiled for the first time in months. "No, Liv, it really isn't." I turned off my phone and opened another browser window. It was going to be a long night, but by morning, my wife's carefully constructed digital empire was going to start crumbling. And Jake Morrison was about to learn that some people's privacy is better protected than others. The bourbon tasted better with each sip as I began to plan. Olivia had always said I was too passive, too willing to let things slide. She was about to discover just how wrong she'd been. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Olivia's panic was palpable even through the screen. "Please call me back. We need to talk. It's not what you think. And my personal favorite, I can explain everything." But I wasn't ready to talk. I was ready to investigate. After a shower and coffee that tasted like victory, I drove to work with a new sense of purpose. Data Shield Security occupied the 3rd floor of a converted mill building downtown, the kind of place where tech companies went to look authentic while charging corporate prices. My cubicle was in the corner, away from the main traffic, perfect for privacy. "You look like hell, Mitchell," Rob Hendricks said, rolling his chair over from the adjacent workstation. Rob was my closest colleague, a 30-year-old hacker turned legitimate who still dressed like he was about to break into the Pentagon. Today's t-shirt read, "I don't need Google, my wife knows everything." "Didn't sleep much," I said, booting up my workstation. "Hey, hypothetically, if someone wanted to access security cameras at a remote location, how hard would that be?" Rob's eyes lit up with the kind of enthusiasm that had probably gotten him in trouble with law enforcement in his younger days. "Hypothetically, depends on the system. Most residential setups are garbage. Default passwords, unencrypted feeds, no real security. Why?" "Just curious about our vulnerabilities." Uh-huh. Rob wasn't buying it, but he also wasn't the type to ask uncomfortable questions. "Well, hypothetically, if someone had the IP address and knew what they were looking for, they could probably access most home systems in under 10 minutes, especially if the owner was more concerned with recording wildlife than actual security." I nodded, making mental notes. Jake's cabin was exactly the type of place that would have cheap cameras set up to watch for bears, not sophisticated enough to keep out someone with actual skills. "And hypothetically," I continued, "if someone wanted to document what they found, how would they go about it legally?" "Screenshots, timestamps, metadata preservation," Rob said without hesitation. "Basic digital forensics. Make sure everything's admissible if it ever comes to that. You working on something interesting?" "Maybe. I'll let you know." The morning flew by as I researched Jake Morrison's digital footprint. social media, property records, business licenses for his guide service. Everything painted the picture of a guy who thought he was smarter than he actually was. His Instagram was full of authentic wilderness experience photos that looked suspiciously professional. His website bragged about the privacy and seclusion of his cabin retreat. Privacy. That was about to become a luxury he couldn't afford. By lunch, I'd mapped out his entire network infrastructure. The cabin had Wi-Fi, security cameras, and even a smart doorbell, all connected to the same router with the same weak password I'd guessed the night before. For a guy who sold wilderness experiences, Jake Morrison was surprisingly dependent on technology. I grabbed a sandwich from the deli downstairs and ate at my desk while accessing his camera feeds. The cabin was beautiful, I had to admit. Rustic logs, stone fireplace, panoramic windows overlooking the lake. It was also currently empty, which meant Olivia and Jake were probably out hiking or doing whatever authentic wilderness activities they thought made them better than people like me. My phone buzzed with another text from Olivia. "I'm coming home tonight. We need to talk face to face." I typed back, "Looking forward to it. I've learned so much about your spa retreat." The response was immediate. "Please don't do anything crazy." Crazy? I was just getting started. At 3 p.m., I called in sick for the rest of the day and drove to Murphy's Tavern, the kind of blue-collar bar where everyone knew everyone's business and wasn't shy about sharing it. My sister Sam worked there as a manager, and if anyone would have insights into the local gossip network, it would be her. Sam was behind the bar, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wiping down glasses with the efficiency of someone who'd been serving drinks since she was legally allowed to. She looked up when I walked in, her expression immediately shifting to concern. "Ryan, what are you doing here in the middle of the day? You look terrible." "Thanks for the ego boost," I said, sliding onto a bar stool. "I need a beer and some information." "The beer I can help with," she said, pulling a draft. "The information depends on what you're looking for." I took a long sip before answering. "What do you know about Jake Morrison?" Sam's expression darkened. "That pretentious ass with the cabin? What's your interest in him?" "Let's just say our paths have crossed recently." "He's trouble, Ryan. Always has been. Thinks he's God's gift to outdoorsy women, charges city folks a fortune to show them how to make s'mores." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Word is he's been entertaining a lot of private clients up at that cabin lately, if you know what I mean." "What kind of private clients?" "The married kind," Sam said bluntly. "Mrs. Griggs lives about a mile down the road from him. She's been complaining about all the fancy cars coming and going at weird hours, says it's disrupting the wildlife." Mrs. Griggs, the 70-year-old busybody who knew everything that happened in a 20-mile radius. If anyone had details about Olivia's visits, it would be her. "Thanks, Sam. I owe you one." "You owe me an explanation," she called after me as I headed for the door. "And Ryan? Whatever's going on, don't do anything stupid." Too late for that advice. Mrs. Griggs lived in a tidy Cape house with garden gnomes and the kind of manicured lawn that suggested she had nothing but time on her hands. She answered the door before I'd even knocked, as if she'd been watching me walk up the driveway. "Ryan Mitchell," she said, adjusting her glasses. "I heard you were asking about that Morrison boy." "News travels fast." "Faster than those fancy cars heading to his cabin," she said with a knowing look. "Come in, dear. We need to talk." Her living room was exactly what I'd expected: doilies, family photos, and a perfect view of the road leading to Jake's property. She served tea I didn't want, and cookies I couldn't refuse while filling me in on 3 months' worth of surveillance that would have impressed the NSA. "That pretty wife of yours has been up there 6 times since August," Mrs. Griggs said matter-of-factly. "Always arrives Friday afternoon, leaves Sunday evening. Always parks behind the cabin where she thinks nobody can see." "You're very observant." "I'm very bored," she corrected. "But I'm also right. That girl's been lying to someone, and I suspect it's you." By the time I left Mrs. Griggs' house, I had dates, times, and enough corroborating evidence to support everything I'd found in Olivia's digital trail. But I also had something else, righteous anger that was crystallizing into a plan. I drove home as the sun was setting, knowing Olivia would be there waiting with explanations and excuses and probably tears. But I wasn't interested in her performance anymore. I was interested in giving her an audience she hadn't expected. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, but Olivia's car was in the garage. I sat in my truck for a moment, looking at our home, the place we'd bought together, decorated together, where we'd planned to build a life together. From the outside, it looked perfect. Just like everything else in Olivia's world. Time to show her what happened when perfect facades started to crack. I walked inside, ready for the conversation that would change everything. Olivia was sitting at our kitchen island, still wearing her spa retreat outfit, yoga pants and an oversized sweater that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her phone was face down beside her, and her hands were wrapped around a mug of tea that had clearly gone cold hours ago. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes red-rimmed but still calculating. Even in crisis mode, Olivia was thinking about angles, about how to control the narrative. It was what made her good at social media and terrible at marriage. "Hi," she said softly, like we were strangers meeting for coffee. "How was the spa?" I asked, setting my keys on the counter with deliberate casualness. "Ryan, please, can we just—" "How was the spa, Olivia?" I repeated, my voice harder this time. She closed her eyes and took a shaky breath. "It wasn't a spa." "No kidding. I was at Jake's cabin." "I know. We need to talk about this like adults." I laughed, the sound bitter in the quiet kitchen. "Adults? You mean like how you've been acting like an adult for the past 3 months while you've been screwing your ex-boyfriend and lying to my face about it? It's not that simple. Actually, it is exactly that simple." I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through the screenshots I'd taken. August 15th, Jake's cabin. August 29th, Jake's cabin. September 12th, September 26th, October 3rd, and this weekend. Should I go on? Olivia's face went pale. "How did you—" "I'm a cybersecurity expert, Liv. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out eventually?" She stood up, pacing to the window that overlooked our backyard. "You went through my private messages." "Your private messages about our marriage?" "Yeah, I did." "That's a violation of my privacy." The audacity was breathtaking. "Your privacy? You've been posting our entire life online for 3 years. You've monetized our anniversary, our vacations, our fights, and our reconciliations. You've turned our marriage into content for strangers to consume. But now you're worried about privacy? That's different, and you know it." "How is it different, Olivia? Explain it to me." She turned around, and for a moment I saw something that might have been genuine remorse cross her face. But then the mask slipped back into place, and she was performing again. "I never meant for this to happen. Jake and I just reconnected as friends, and then you decided to reconnect horizontally. Don't be crude. Don't be a cheater." We stared at each other across the kitchen, 3 years of marriage and 10 years of history crystallizing into this moment. I could see her trying to find the right words, the perfect combination of apology and justification that would let her keep both me and Jake, both security and excitement. "I love you, Ryan, I do. But I also—" "Love him?" "I don't know. Maybe I'm confused." "Well, let me help clear things up for you." I walked to the refrigerator and pulled out a beer, taking my time opening it while she watched. "I know about Maya covering for you. I know about the fake posts and the manufactured alibis. I know about the other women Jake's been entertaining at that cabin." That got her attention. "What other women? You didn't think you were special, did you? Jake's been running a side business up there, entertaining bored married women who want to feel authentic for a weekend. You're just another client, Liv." "That's not true. Mrs. Griggs has been keeping track. 6 different women in the past 2 months, not counting you. Jake's got quite the operation going." I watched the realization hit her like a physical blow. The great love affair, the authentic connection, the escape from her boring suburban life. It was all just another transaction. You're lying. Am I? Check his Instagram DMs, check his Venmo transactions, or better yet, ask Maya. She's been helping coordinate schedules so you ladies don't run into each other. Olivia grabbed her phone, fingers flying across the screen. I sipped my beer and waited, watching her face change as she found the evidence I'd already discovered. The other women, the payment requests, the casual way Jake had been juggling multiple, authentic wilderness experiences. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Yeah, your soulmate's a hustler, and you're just another mark." She sank back onto the bar stool, phone clutched in her hand. "What are you going to do?" "What do you think I'm going to do? Are you going to leave me?" I finished my beer, considering the question. "I don't know yet, but I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen. I'm not going to smile for your Instagram posts while you decide between your husband and your wilderness gigolo, and I'm sure as hell not going to let you make me the bad guy in this story." "What does that mean?" I smiled, and something in my expression made her lean back. "It means, Olivia, that you've spent 3 years teaching me about the power of social media, about building narratives and controlling images, and the importance of authentic content." "Ryan, please don't what? Don't give your followers the authentic content they deserve? Don't show them what your perfect marriage really looks like behind the scenes?" "You can't. My sponsors. Your sponsors are about to learn some very interesting things about their brand ambassador." I pulled out my laptop and opened it on the kitchen counter, angling the screen so she could see. The email was already composed, complete with screenshots, timestamps, and a detailed explanation of Olivia's authentic lifestyle brand. "This goes to all of them," I said. "The yoga company, the wellness brand, the travel gear sponsors. All the companies paying you to represent their family-friendly, authentic lifestyle products while you're out cheating on your husband. That will destroy everything I've built." "Yeah, it will." "Please, Ryan. I made a mistake. I can fix this." "How? Are you going to stop seeing Jake?" She hesitated just long enough to give me my answer. "That's what I thought." I closed the laptop. "I'm not sending this tonight. I'm going to give you 24 hours to think about what you want your life to look like. But Olivia, if you contact Jake, if you try to warn him, if you delete one single message or photo, I'll release everything. And I mean everything. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you a choice, more than you gave me." She stood up, wrapping her arms around herself. "I need some air. I'm going for a drive." "No, you're not." "Excuse me? You're not going anywhere tonight. You're going to stay here, in this house, and think about the choices that brought us to this point. If you leave, I'll assume you've made your decision." "You can't keep me prisoner." "I'm not keeping you prisoner. I'm asking my wife to spend one night in her own home, thinking about whether she wants to stay married or not." Olivia stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing her options. Finally, she nodded. "Fine. One night." One night. She headed upstairs to our bedroom, leaving me alone in the kitchen with my laptop and my anger. But as I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, I realized something had shifted. For the first time in months, I wasn't the one apologizing, compromising, or trying to save something that was already broken. Tomorrow, Olivia would make her choice, and regardless of what she decided, I was going to make sure Jake Morrison learned what happened when you messed with the wrong man's marriage. I opened my laptop and started planning phase 2 of my revenge. Because whether Olivia stayed or left, Jake was going to pay for his part in destroying my life, and I was going to enjoy every minute of it. I woke up alone. Olivia's side of the bed was cold, and her car was gone from the garage. So much for thinking about our marriage. She'd made her choice before sunrise. My phone had 3 new messages. "I need time to figure things out. Staying at Maya's for a few days. Please don't do anything we'll both regret. I do love you, Ryan. I just need space." Space. The universal excuse for people who wanted to keep their options open while avoiding consequences. I made coffee and opened my laptop. The email to Olivia's sponsors was still in my drafts folder, but now it felt like small-time revenge. Jake Morrison had cost me my marriage, and a few canceled sponsorship deals weren't going to be enough payback. I called in sick to work. The advantage of never using sick days was that no one questioned you when you finally did. Then I drove to Murphy's Tavern to find Sam and recruit some local help. The lunch crowd was typical for a Tuesday: construction workers, retirees, and the kind of people who drank beer with their sandwiches and didn't apologize for it. Sam was training a new bartender, a college kid who looked like he'd never seen the inside of a blue-collar bar. "Ryan," Sam said, looking surprised. "2 days in a row? This must be serious." "It's about to be. I need a favor." "What kind of favor?" I pulled out my phone and showed her some of the photos from Olivia's hidden album. Sam's expression darkened as she scrolled through them. "That cheating snake." "Yeah. And now I need help making sure Jake Morrison understands there are consequences for his actions." Sam handed my phone back and looked around the bar, making sure no one was listening. "What did you have in mind?" "Nothing illegal, nothing violent, just educational." "I'm listening." I outlined my plan while Sam poured drinks and nodded at the right moments. By the time I finished, she was grinning with the kind of enthusiasm that reminded me why I'd always been slightly afraid of my little sister. "When do we start?" she asked. "Tonight. But first, I need to make a few calls." I spent the afternoon gathering intelligence and resources. Rob agreed to help with the technical aspects, no questions asked. Mrs. Griggs provided additional surveillance data and offered to help with community outreach. Even the new bartender, whose name turned out to be Danny, and who had his own grudge against rich guys who treated service workers like garbage, volunteered for the cause. By 6 p.m., I had a team and a plan. Jake Morrison was about to learn that small towns had long memories and that some people didn't forgive and forget as easily as he'd assumed. The first phase was psychological. I created a fake Instagram account and started following all of Jake's clients, the married women whose cars Mrs. Griggs had documented visiting the cabin. Then I began liking their old posts, the ones from times when they should have been at Jake's place. Just enough activity to make them nervous, to make them wonder if someone was watching. Within 2 hours, 3 of them had made their accounts private. By the next morning, one had deleted her entire profile. Phase 2 was economic. Rob helped me identify Jake's business accounts and online booking system. We didn't hack anything. We just signed up for his email newsletters and discovered that his authentic wilderness experience packages cost $300 per day, with special private retreat options running up to $1,000. I screenshotted everything and created a detailed breakdown of Jake's pricing structure, then posted it anonymously on local Facebook groups with the caption, "Interesting business model for our local wilderness guide. Wonder what makes the private retreats so much more expensive." The comments section exploded within hours. Local guides who charged $50 a day were outraged. Wives whose husbands had hired Jake for legitimate hunting trips started asking uncomfortable questions about the pricing discrepancies. Phase 3 was social. Sam and her network of bartenders, waitresses, and service workers began spreading carefully chosen pieces of information throughout town. Nothing false, nothing that could be traced back to us. Just the truth about Jake's business practices and his clientele. By Thursday, Jake's reputation was developing some serious cracks, but I was just getting started. Friday afternoon, I drove out to the cabin. Jake's truck was in the driveway, and I could see him through the window, talking on his phone with animated gestures, probably trying to manage the damage to his business. I parked at the bottom of his driveway and walked up to the front door. He answered on the second knock, looking like he hadn't slept much lately. "Ryan," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "What brings you out here?" I think you know. Look, man, I'm sorry about the situation with Olivia. I never meant for things to get complicated. Complicated. I nodded thoughtfully. That's an interesting word for it. She told me you two were having problems, that you were basically separated. Did she also tell you about the other women? Jake's expression flickered. What other women? The ones you've been charging for private retreats, the ones who think they're your only clients. Should I start naming names? I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Mrs. Henderson from the bank, Jennifer Walsh, the mayor's wife, that real estate agent from Portland whose husband thinks she's been attending yoga retreats. Jake stepped back, his casual confidence evaporating. How do you know about your business model? I'm good with technology, Jake. Really good. And you're not nearly as discreet as you think you are. What do you want? I want you to understand something. You didn't just sleep with my wife. You built a business around destroying marriages, and you got sloppy about it. Now that sloppiness is going to cost you. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. See, you made two mistakes. First, you assumed I was the kind of guy who'd just roll over and take it. Second, you forgot that in small towns, reputation is everything. I pulled out my phone and showed him the Facebook posts, the Instagram activity, the anonymous tips that had been sent to his other clients' husbands. Your business is about to collapse, Jake. Your clients are panicking, their husbands are asking questions, and the whole town is talking about your creative pricing structure. You bastard. Maybe, but I'm a bastard with very good computer skills and a lot of free time. Jake looked like he wanted to hit me, but he was smart enough to know that assault charges would only make his situation worse. What do you want me to do about it? Nothing. It's too late for that. But I want you to know that this is just the beginning. Every time you hurt someone's marriage, every time you lie to some lonely woman about being special, every time you profit off other people's pain, I'll be watching. You can't monitor me forever. I don't have to. After this week, do you really think you'll have any clients left? I walked back to my truck, leaving Jake standing in his doorway. As I drove away, I could see him in my rearview mirror, still standing there, probably trying to figure out how his perfect setup had fallen apart so quickly. But I wasn't done with him yet. The real finale was still to come. Saturday morning brought the town's annual fall festival, and I had front row seats to Jake Morrison's public humiliation. The festival was held in the town square, with local vendors, live music, and the kind of community spirit that made small-town life both charming and dangerous for people with secrets. I arrived early and set up at a picnic table with a clear view of the main stage, where local businesses were scheduled to give presentations about their services. Jake had signed up months ago to talk about authentic outdoor experiences, back when his reputation was still intact. Sam joined me with coffee and donuts from the church booth, grinning like she was about to watch her favorite movie. How many people do you think know? She asked. By now, most of the town. And he still plans to give his presentation? His name's on the schedule. I guess we'll see if he shows up. We didn't have to wait long. At 10:30, Jake's truck pulled into the parking area near the square. He sat in the cab for several minutes, probably working up the courage to face the crowd. When he finally got out, I could see the strain on his face from 50 yards away. He made it about halfway to the stage before Mrs. Henderson intercepted him. The bank manager's wife was a small woman, but she had the kind of quiet authority that came from handling other people's money for 30 years. I couldn't hear what she said, but Jake's face went pale and he started backing toward his truck. Too late. Mayor Walsh appeared from behind the information booth, and his expression suggested he'd had some very interesting conversations with his wife recently. Within minutes, Jake was surrounded by a growing circle of men whose wives had been clients of his wilderness guide services. "This is better than cable," Sam said, pulling out her phone to record. The confrontation was brief but definitive. No violence, no shouting, just a calm, adult conversation about business practices, and community standards. By the time it was over, Jake was walking quickly back to his truck while several dozen people watched in silence. He never made it to his presentation slot, but I wasn't finished yet. Sunday evening, I drove out to Jake's cabin one last time. His truck was loaded with boxes and camping gear, and he was securing a tarp over everything with the efficiency of someone who'd done a lot of quick exits. "Going somewhere?" I asked, walking up the driveway. Jake looked up from his packing, his face resigned. "Colorado. Got a job offer with an outfitting company out there." Sudden decision? Seemed like the right time for a fresh start. I nodded, understanding the subtext. His business was over, his reputation was ruined, and half the husbands in town were keeping an eye on his activities. "Before you go," I said, "I want you to understand something. This wasn't just about Olivia." "I know." "Do you? Because you've been running this scam for at least a year, maybe longer, preying on women who were lonely or bored or looking for something their marriages weren't giving them, making them think they were special while you collected payment and moved on to the next client." Jake straightened up, some of his old arrogance returning. "Those women made their own choices." "Yeah, they did. But you made it easy for them to make bad ones. You built a business around destroying families." "I never forced anyone to do anything." "No. You just created the perfect environment for it. The isolated cabin, the authentic wilderness experience, the rugged guide who understood them better than their boring husbands. What's your point?" "My point is that you're a predator. A smart one, maybe, but still a predator. And predators need to be stopped." Jake finished tying down his tarp and walked to the driver's door. "Well, congratulations. You stopped me." "This time, but Colorado's full of lonely married women too, isn't it?" He paused with his hand on the door handle. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I have friends in Colorado. Friends in the cybersecurity business who understand the importance of community safety. Friends who might be very interested in learning about your business model." Jake's face went white. "You can't follow me around for the rest of my life." "I don't have to, but I can make sure the right people know what to watch for. And in the age of social media and background checks, reputations have a way of following people wherever they go." I pulled out my phone and showed him the document I'd prepared. A detailed report on his activities, complete with testimonials from his former clients' husbands and a breakdown of his methods. It was professional, factual, and devastating. This goes to every outdoor guide service, hunting outfitter, and wilderness company in Colorado, along with copies to local law enforcement, marriage counselors, and women's safety organizations. That's harassment. That's community service. Jake got in his truck and started the engine, but he rolled down the window before pulling away. "What about Olivia?" he asked. "What about her? Are you going to forgive her?" I thought about it for a moment, watching this man who'd helped destroy my marriage, asking about redemption. "That's between me and her," I said finally. "But Jake? If I ever find out you've contacted her again, if you ever try to restart what you had, I'll make this week look like a friendly warning." He drove away without another word, taillights disappearing into the darkness. I stood in the empty driveway for a few minutes, breathing the cool October air and listening to the sounds of the lake. It was peaceful here. I could understand why people found it appealing. But peace, built on lies and betrayal, wasn't really peace at all. My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Jake told me he's leaving town. Did you have something to do with that?" I typed back, "Jake made his own choices, just like you did. Can we talk? I don't think there's anything left to say. Please, Ryan. I want to try to fix this." I looked out at the lake, thinking about forgiveness and second chances and whether some betrayals were too deep to heal. "Maybe," I typed, "but not tonight, and not until you decide what kind of person you want to be." I drove home through the quiet streets of our small town, past Murphy's Tavern and Mrs. Griggs' house, and all the places where people knew my story now. where they'd watched me fight back against the kind of humiliation that usually destroyed men quietly and privately. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, but for the first time in months, the darkness didn't feel lonely. It felt like possibility. 3 weeks later, Olivia came home. I was in my office, working on a legitimate security project for once, when I heard her key in the front door. She'd texted that morning asking if we could talk, and I'd agreed to 30 minutes. Not because I was ready to forgive her, but because I was curious to see what version of herself she'd decided to present. She looked different, less polished, more genuine. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup. For someone whose life revolved around being camera-ready, it was a significant change. "Hi," she said, standing in the doorway of my office. "Hi? Can we sit down somewhere?" I followed her to the living room, where she took the chair across from the couch, maintaining distance, not presuming intimacy. Another small sign that maybe she'd learned something during our separation. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what you said, about the kind of person I want to be. And I want to be someone who tells the truth, even when it's hard." I waited. "I was never happy with our marriage," she said, her voice steady but quiet. "Not because you did anything wrong, but because I was never happy with myself. The Instagram thing, the influencer lifestyle, it was all about trying to create a version of myself that felt worth something. So you decided to sleep with Jake." I decided to run away from reality. Jake was just the escape route. One of many, apparently. She winced. "You were right about that. I wasn't special to him. I was just another client who paid in different ways. How does that make you feel?" Stupid, humiliated, angry at myself for being so naive. But not angry at me for exposing it? Olivia considered the question carefully. "I was at first. But then I realized you did me a favor. You showed me what my choices actually looked like instead of letting me live in the fantasy." I leaned back on the couch, studying my wife's face. She seemed sincere, but Olivia had always been good at seeming sincere when it served her purposes. "What do you want, Liv?" "I want to know if there's any chance we can rebuild this. Not go back to what we had, but create something better." "Based on what? Trust? Because that's going to take a while to reestablish. Based on honesty. Complete honesty, even when it's uncomfortable." "Okay, let's start there. Are you still in contact with Jake?" "No. He tried calling a few times after he left town, but I didn't answer." "Why not?" "Because I realized that what I thought was love was just rebellion. I was so focused on what I wasn't getting from our marriage that I convinced myself Jake was offering something real. And now? Now I understand that real relationships require work, not escape." I nodded, appreciating the insight even if I wasn't ready to act on it yet. "What about your Instagram, your influencer career?" Olivia's expression shifted, and for the first time since she'd arrived, she looked genuinely emotional. "I deleted it." "What?" "All of it. The Instagram account, the TikTok, the YouTube channel, everything." I stared at her, shocked. Olivia's social media presence had been her identity, her income, and her primary source of validation for 3 years. "When?" "Last week. I realized I couldn't keep monetizing a life I'd already destroyed, and I couldn't keep pretending to be someone I wasn't." That must have been difficult. It was terrifying, but also liberating. "What are you going to do for work?" "I don't know yet. Maybe something real this time." We sat in silence for a few minutes, both of us processing the weight of what she'd shared. Finally, I asked the question that mattered most. "Do you love me, Olivia? Actually love me, not the security I represent or the life we built together?" She met my eyes directly. "I don't know. I thought I did, but I'm not sure I knew what love meant. I was so busy performing happiness that I forgot to actually feel it." "That's honest. I want to find out, though. if you're willing to let me try." I considered her request, weighing it against months of betrayal and weeks of anger. But I also thought about the woman sitting across from me, stripped of her digital persona, facing the consequences of her choices, asking for a chance to discover who she really was. "I'm not ready to be married to you again," I said finally. "Not yet." Her face fell, but she nodded. "But I'm willing to see if there's someone worth being married to underneath all the performance." "What does that mean?" "It means we start over. Dating, getting to know each other, building something real instead of something that looks good online." "Like we're strangers?" "In a lot of ways, we are." Olivia smiled for the first time since she'd arrived, a genuine expression that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. "I'd like that," she said. "There are conditions." "Name them." "Complete transparency, passwords, phones, schedules, everything open." "Agreed." "No social media, not for a while." "Already done." "And if you ever lie to me again, even about something small, we're finished. No second chances, no explanations, no working through it." "I understand." "Do you? Because this isn't a negotiation, Olivia. This is me offering you one opportunity to prove that you're capable of being the person you claim you want to be." "I understand," she repeated, her voice stronger this time. I looked at my wife, my estranged wife, sitting in our living room, asking for a chance to earn back what she'd thrown away. 6 months ago, I would have said yes immediately, desperate to avoid conflict and preserve the illusion of our perfect life. But I wasn't the same man who'd discovered her betrayal. That man had been passive, accommodating, willing to be taken for granted. This man had learned to fight back. "Okay," I said, "we can try." "Really?" "Really." "But Olivia? I'm not the same person I was before all this happened. I won't be as easy to fool, and I won't be as quick to forgive. If we do this, we do it right. I want to do it right." "Then let's see what that looks like." She smiled again, and this time I smiled back. Not because I trusted her, trust would have to be earned over time, but because for the first time in our relationship, we were being completely honest with each other. It felt like a beginning. 6 months later, Olivia and I renewed our wedding vows in a small ceremony at Murphy's Tavern, with Sam as our witness and Mrs. Griggs providing commentary from the bar. No photographers, no social media posts, no performance for an online audience. Just two people who'd learned the hard way that real love required more courage than perfect Instagram posts. Jake Morrison never contacted us again. I heard through Rob that he'd lasted 3 months in Colorado before moving on to Montana, then Wyoming, always staying one step ahead of his reputation. Some people never learn, but some people do. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the people who matter most learn in time to save what's worth saving.